I've been involved in the area of sexual abuse prevention for almost 30 years, and there's lots and lots of different ways to get involved in sexual abuse prevention. And really, at the end of the day, every citizen can get involved in sexual abuse prevention, working with kids, working with families, working with at-risk families, working with people who are afraid that abuse might be happening in their areas. And in my way of preventing sexual abuse, I've worked both with the people who've been abused as well as those that have abused. And so I've worked in the community, worked in prison and prison-type settings, and really all over the globe. And if you just look at the media and read about sexual abuse in our communities, you might think that it's a really impossible problem to solve. The fact of the matter is that we've got a lot of good science, a lot of good research, a lot of good studies that show us what does and doesn't work. And unfortunately, most people that just read the newspapers wind up being misguided because we only hear about things when they go wrong. We don't hear about things when they're going right. The simple fact of the matter is, there's no question about it any longer, that punishment does not reduce crime. Now, I've got a family myself. When I hear about sex crimes happening in my community, I'm mad. I want to see that person taken off the street for a long time too. Most people do. But the fact of the matter is that punishment on its own does not reduce the likelihood that people are going to do it again. So, as a society, if we're going to punish crime, we need to get punishment as punishment. It's not the same thing as rehabilitation. It's not the same thing as making our communities safer. On the other hand, the research is showing that people that do complete treatment programs really do, on average, reoffend at lower rates. Now, there's a lot of controversies and a lot of smaller challenges within that in terms of how do we get people to actually meaningfully complete the treatment programs that we have to offer. But so far what the science is clear on is that people who complete treatment programs tend to do better. Whereas people who simply go to prison and come out again, there's no difference. And in fact, if you take lower risk people and put them into prison type settings, it can actually make them worse. Ultimately, what really seems to work is when you can have a person involved in a treatment program alongside some kind of good supervision in the community. I've often said it before, but if I become king of the world, sometimes I even say when I become king of the world, there would be a lot more probation officers, for example, on the streets. That when you get supervising agents and therapists working together, the good things can and do happen. So, just up to this point, punishment does not work to actually reduce crime. It's good at punishment. Treatment can reduce crime, and it does a little bit better, according to some studies, when you can match it with some good community supervision. But now the question is, what does good treatment look like? And I would say that the best treatment is treatment aimed at making sexual offenders stable in the community. In other words, when we put together little parks in the middle of our communities in order to make sex offenders move away, when we have residency restrictions that make them live under a bridge in Florida, as was happening, the Julia Tuttle Causeway back around 2009 or so, when we have residency restrictions such as in Iowa, where we had sexual offenders having to live at highway area rest stops, this is not stability. This is not good science. It's not good practice. It's not good public policy. And it's not good law. So when we have treatment programs and supervision aimed at stability and keeping people occupied, whether with a job or going back to school, when we can surround them with people to whom they can be accountable, people who can be supportive as well as accountable, that tends to be better science. It produces better results. And the final thing is, do the people that we're trying to keep safe in the community have some sort of a plan for how they're going to live a better life? So if you put all of those things together, a colleague of mine in New Zealand, his name is Doug Bauer, has come up with the acronym SOAP, S-O-A-P, because the safest sexual offenders are the ones that are stable, occupied, are accountable to supportive people, and have a plan. Now, the final thing that I want to say about this, I think, is a really important point, which is we don't spend a lot of money on treatment in our communities. We spend a lot of money on prisons, and a lot of our prison systems don't have enough therapists to go around. And I have to ask myself, as a society, what do we tell the people that do go on to become abused? Because as a society, we weren't spending enough money and allocating enough resources in the direction of prevention, as well as for treatment of those people that we do know have sexually abused. And this is a question I hope that we as a nation can focus on in the years ahead. That's what I've got to say. Thanks for listening.